A few decades ago, video game manuals were commonplace. Whenever you purchased a brand new game, chances are they came with these companions of sorts that guided you in times of need. Alas, this era is now long gone, and most probably only ever think of it in a nostalgic context, but I'd like to look at it from a bit of a different perspective. Have you ever thought about the various ways that this medium has been used?
Now, I gotta confess, I didn't actually grow up with video game manuals myself, but nowadays, as a book designer who's still just as obsessed with video games, I've become incredibly fascinated with how varied and versatile the medium is, especially when looking at it through the lens of graphic design. You might be surprised to find that the spectrum of game manuals is actually quite wide, going all the way from simple pamphlets included in game cases to whole strategy guides that delve deep into every little detail. This also includes a whole lot of different approaches to the execution. Some were plain and simple, filling the same practical purpose that manuals have, while others went all out to not only assist players, but also take the opportunity to share additional insights through expanded world building, or even sharing their own design philosophies. As such, throughout this video, I'll be going through a few different video game manuals to showcase them. The main reason that video game manuals were made was that information about games was not as easily accessible. Not everybody had access to the internet like we do now, and even if you did, it might have been too slow and you'd have to know where to look. So, as such, if you were publishing a game before the 2010s or so, having a manual to accompany your game and help players in case they got stuck was practically a requirement.
When you think about it, however, creating a manual would have been quite a big project. Somebody had to collect the information, write the content, source the visuals, put it together, and print it, which, depending on how fancy you want it, it can get very expensive.
Obviously, the bigger game publishers and developers had the matching higher budgets for this, and as a result, more freedom in creating them. But even so, some of the less flashy manuals could have so much charm to them too.
As one of the literal first games ever, Space Invaders isn't really something that needs a lot of explanation. So it only makes sense that the manual is very short. It's literally only 8 pages long. But to get people familiar with this specific release, of course, something had to come with it. What is nice is that despite this being a very short manual, they still took the time to mention some of the history of the game, the inspirations and influences, and stuff like that. And it's also very amusingly self-aware, because here it's like, oh, if you're unfamiliar with Space Invaders, where have you been? From the graphic design perspective, I must say that this typesetting is very nice, because even the paragraphs that have little ending lines that are a bit shorter, there's never any orphans. But this is very clean. I really love this one because, first of all, it's like trying to push itself a little bit further away from just being super practical. The inside is a little bit more fancy. It's got some little icons here and stuff like that. These artworks are so cute, and even though I assume it wouldn't really be that great as a coloring book because these are shaded in, you definitely could just go and color them in regardless. And I really like that you can tell that the writers of this manual really had a lot of fun with it, but at the same time made it very friendly. I think actually my favorite part is that they took the time to put their own game design philosophy into this manual, which is you obviously they didn't have to do this, but I think it's really nice how to them it was important enough that they wanted to share that with their players. They even have the credits of who actually wrote and designed this manual. I absolutely adore this. This little fun little ending bit about don't even think about giving this game away. It's got so much good character. Oh my goodness, what a freaking beautiful sight to behold. Remember that they used to make video games about literally every IP out there? This one's actually, I guess, more fancy, you could say. We've got color, and we've got a little background. I adore all of these little bits of clip art. The little heading finger. This is like the sort of thing where it's like, this is so bad that it's good, because I think it like kind of gained its own charm. And the fact that like they actually did give you a little bit of a scenario, because presumably you booted up the game and it just like plonked you right there, so now you actually know what to do. There's like a little insight on how the game looks, and honestly it looks terrible. Not in the sense that the game looks terrible, but like it looks terrible when you print it. But it's kind of nice that they decided to put it there anyway, just so you kind of have like a little bit of an expectation, I suppose.
Aside from the practical use for video game manuals, it's also important to note that the technical limitations at the time made it so that games often lacked the means to convey the information about the world and the characters they featured.
This isn't something we often think about nowadays, but there was only so much you could do with the limited space of the cartridge. For example, the Game Boy Color supported cartridges only up to 8 megabytes. For modern standards, obviously this is nothing. This is also why Pokemon Gold, Silver, and Crystal is still such a technological marvel of having so much content. Anyways, game manuals were a good way to try and bridge that gap. They often were the only place where you could see character artworks, especially ones that weren't featured on the game case, and they also often shared some little extra details that couldn't make it into the game, either about the world that you played in or the characters that you met. It is very simple, however, once it goes into the how to play, it actually does go into a lot of detail of what each of the power-ups do, what they're even called. Like apparently the star was Starman. Enemy names, a lot of little charming descriptions that kind of help you understand better all these little things that you encounter, including Bowser. What's also really nice is that they actually took the time to create these lovely little cute illustrations. Like one of my favorites is like this one, because I mean, he just looks so unhinged. He's out there just attacking everything. So good for you, Mario. Love that for you. Actually, as a designer, I have some beef with this because there are so many orphans. This is one here. There's also one here. And like, honestly, some of the spacing on this stuff is not that great. And also, most of the manuals I see usually use left-align text, but this one actually used justification, which is a little bit interesting to me, because not a lot of them did. So, no, another orphan. It's fine. I'm just being super critical here for fun. I love this cover because it's like just a great exploration of graphic design. Also, this logo kind of slaps. But anyways, we're talking about more lore. At the beginning, like sure, they do give you some general manual stuff. Really, they then go all out with these big explanations of like what the world is. Oh my god, did they actually? Hold on a second. I need actual pictures of this. Okay, so they did do these foldouts. This is beautiful. Yeah, here you go. You've got these foldouts. Lovely, beautiful. So this spread that has 3 pages in it, that you actually could see it like that, and I think that's awesome. Anyways, we love to see all these icons, and you get to see these enemies in their artworks as well. Oh, beautiful. Little old men. There's just so much character to it, and it's like, yeah, of course the pixel art leaves a lot up to your own interpretation and you get to imagine what things look like, but it's also nice to see what the artists really wanted these things to look like, had the technology been there. Gorgeous. Printed in Japan. Of course it was printed in Japan, that doesn't surprise me. Okay, well this is a little bit unreadable, but we can excuse that. You gotta wonder also, like, how did they take these screenshots of these games? Because some of them are a little bit crooked. Oh, I wonder how they made this. I have so many questions. I love it. Pokemon Pokemon's design philosophy has always been about trying to immerse the player into the world of Pokemon. Because of this, I sort of hesitated to include this manual as an example of trying to give you more of the world, because it's more focused on immersing you rather than telling you every little detail that you would want to know as a player. So for example, like here with the Rattata and Pidgey descriptions and some extra of these memos from Oak, you could assume that this is what Oak gives you as the player character to read. And I think that's just really cool. And it is something that tries to be like a Wikipedia companion, at least like as much as they can tell you, because they don't want to tell you everything either. Like the example of how they tried to do the Pokemon type chart, but at the same time, it's actually kind of a bad one. It does give you some hints. So for example, like 1 and 14 is normal and ghost, and it says poor, but like that's not bad. It just says poor, even though like theoretically it doesn't work at all. But it doesn't tell you that. It just says that it's poor, whatever the heck that means. It tries to give you all this information, but it's not actually being super direct about it, which I think is very cool. I was really having a fun time with this in the context of this being on archive.org. So they have this Pokemon list at the end, and it's actually interesting because they do partially fill it out. So in a sense, it does spoil you on some Pokemon, but not all of them. At the very end, whoever uploaded this, they were like, oh, let's add the 2 Pokemon that, you know, weren't officially in the game, but obviously that people did find out about eventually.
In my time researching video game manuals, my favorite observation has been when it comes to breaking the boundaries of what a video game manual can be. As established, game manuals are something that is very practical, and at some point used to be a necessity. So, what happens when you go just a bit beyond, when you go that extra little bit above what is expected?
We're getting a little more into the modern territory now with this one, and it's mostly like about what you would expect. At the very end of it, they added a very cool ARG type of thing. This ticket is actually a reference to a puzzle in the game. You can like go back to your game manual and double check it and like see the little ticket. It's like a little cherry on top. Like, they didn't have to do this, but they did, and I think that's awesome. This one's easily one of my favorites. It not only tried to do what Pokemon did, but at the same time, it also really leans into the world building part of things and really plays around with it. And what I mean by this is that, so when you start, obviously it's a bit more of the usual, and you've got both like the manual and the strategy. However, if you can see here, in between all of these, there's these blue headings, and all of these just sound like newspapers, and that's literally what they are. They capture a little bit of what each area is like and how they react to the events that happened, and each of them looks completely different. And it kind of like goes together with what you would expect the town's local newspaper to be, which is so cool. They really went all out, and they added all of these little different headings and the different colors. And obviously this is a full color guide, which is awesome. They even designed a friggin' label for this item in the game. And oh my god, like, I feel like I could be here for hours just like studying every little thing. It really just leans into the whole aesthetic of the game. If you are able to put it all together under one distinct look and then expand it even further into something like this, oh, I just think that's beautiful, man. This final one is actually a little bit different than all of my showcases thus far, because unlike what I've talked about previously and guides for games in the physical sense, this is actually a game that literally uses the instruction manual format as a core mechanic, but you basically collect all of these pages as you progress through the game, and it's so wonderfully meta and awesome. This is like the ultimate way to kind of challenge this relationship that these digital worlds and how we experience them can be also done in this kind of format. This makes me want to play this game. I haven't played this game, but I should, because this looks wonderful.
So if you've made it this far into the video and you aren't thinking, dang, what a shame we don't do stuff like this anymore, can we bring it back? Then honestly, I'm surprised you're still watching. But if you are thinking that, then my answer is, well, yeah, sort of. To this day, there are still a handful of publishers that do video game manuals, or just books that are related to video games in general. Is it the same as it was done back then? Well, not at all, but times have changed. Maybe they don't need to be.
As is with printed publications as a whole these days, video game manuals too have evolved from something that is more of a necessity to something that is rather used to complement something else, to give it a little bit more depth. One of the most notable ones, especially if you like indie games, is Fangamer. They had their start back in the late 2000s when they created an unofficial Mother 3 handbook. Since then, they've expanded to create all sorts of handbooks for games like Stardew Valley, Hollow Knight, and even brought the amazing in-game manual of Tunic into the real, tangible world. Piggyback is another publisher that has been a long-time player in the scene, focusing on creating specifically guidebooks for various big franchises, from Legend of Zelda to Assassin's Creed. And to quote their About page on their website, "We frequently get asked why we still publish guidebooks when so much is available on the internet for free, and the short answer is our fans, our product, and our team."
I gotta say, I really admire the fact they have kept their craft going despite everything. Given the more precarious position many creatives find themselves these days, it's always heartwarming to witness that some are still thriving, despite everything, in their little niches with their own ways. In fact, I think the world would immediately get just a little bit smidge better if we actually could support more endeavors like this instead of whatever the hell we're going through right now. The deeper I've fallen into this rabbit hole, the more apparent it has become to me that we should be bringing our digital world experiences into the tangible world. And, video game manuals are practically the most pure form of that, which I think is awesome. Likewise, I feel like that the way that the video game manuals have evolved makes it kind of the perfect medium to create merchandise that is also practical. It feels like a great and refreshing contrast to the never-ending overconsumption a lot of us experience these days. Perhaps it is my bias as a creative, but I truly think that it is a place where you can cultivate some of the best creative expression. One that has inherent guidelines to stick to, but also one you can push a bit further than that, where you can think of fun ideas, but also have a reason to implement them. It's no secret that video games as a whole create very unique experiences just as an extension of the medium, and to me, turning that into a manual, one that you can physically touch especially, feels like the ultimate fun circle moment. Similarly to playing a video game, I would argue that you can't really engage with a book by just looking at it and moving on. You gotta pick it up, turn the pages, read them, and explore the layouts. Is it more difficult to engage with compared to, doom scrolling your preferred short-form video content platform? Perhaps, but in terms of fulfillment, I'd say it's worth the effort. Nevertheless, for me, it has been plain refreshing to dig deeper into this niche that a lot of us may have forgotten about, especially in terms of the potential that it has. I hope that in the coming years, it will become less of a niche because I think it deserves so much more attention. Though, for now, and hopefully until then, I encourage you to go and dig out your old dusty manuals if you have them, or, like me, go on archive.org, and appreciate all the effort and love that has gone into them. Whether it will dig up some of your nostalgic memories of playing these games as a kid, or just let you appreciate some part of it that you didn't even think about, I think you'll find yourself having a great time.
And who knows, it might also be an inspiration to you. It certainly has been for me. Like and subscribe if you'd like to see more stuff like this. Or if you just thought that this was a good use of your time on this planet.